evening. We will call the August 13th Kildare Hills Board of Commissioners meeting to order. And I would ask for everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we do with all of our meetings, we start after the Pledge of Allegiance with a moment of silence. As we head into this evening's moment of silence, I certainly would like to take a moment to express my concern and sorrow and thoughts for the families that have lost loved ones recently in the past 2 months on our highways, specifically two in our town. Dmytro Pali from Ukraine was a 20-year-old that died on his bicycle, and also John Carlton Jr., a 44-year-old who died on the bypass last month. And later in the meeting, I'll just talk a little bit because I know there's some concerns about highway safety. But I would ask that you keep their families in your thoughts and prayers. And also the family of Ralph Beasley. Some of you may have seen on the website a write-up about Mr. Beasley. He was actually one of the first, if not the first, public works employee for the town of Kildare Hills. And apparently, obviously I wasn't here then, but did an amazing service to the town in the Ash Wednesday storm. And that's what he's most remembered for. So as we enter the moment of silence, I just ask for you to keep those in your prayers. Thank you. First on the agenda this evening is agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second that, but did you want to move the...
Yes, what I'd like to do, if you all agree, is to move the presentation that's right now scheduled to be further down in the agenda. I would like to go ahead and move that. I guess that would need to be after the public hearing.
Actually,
It could be before?
It could be next, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
well then we'll move that next if that's what everyone agrees.
You do the motion or no? We got it.
If you
Just agree.
Agree to that?
I'll
Mhm.
second that with that amendment.
Okay, all those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So, actually, our next item on the agenda will be the presentation. And we have several folks here this evening. Debbie, would you like to?
Yes, ma'am.
Introduce
Thank you.
this.
Let me just flip back through here. This evening, we're honored to have a presentation of the Earl Murray Award to our detective, Kevin Davies. And with us this evening is Mrs. Murray, Sergeant Earl Murray's widow, and also we have several members of the Kildare Hills Police Department. I'm not sure who's going to do that. We got the chief and several detectives, and okay, everybody's running up to the podium.
Ms. Murray, would
Captain
you like
Johnson, are you gonna be the one?
to? And Ms. Murray, would you do an introduction for us, in case some are not aware, and this is also televised, of this award and recognition? Give the background for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Kimberly Murray. My husband worked for Nags Head Police Department. He was killed on May 15th of 2009 while responding to a 911 burglary call. It was bad weather. His car, it was raining really hard, and right in front of the Nags Head Elementary School, he hit water and lost control and hit the cement pole and was killed instantly. Which brings us to the Outer Banks Public Safety, which some of the wives got together after that took place to just as a means of trying to bring the families together a little more so with public service, firefighters, police officers, the lifeguard service. So what we do is I set up 2 foundations, actually in my husband's honor. In December, we actually go and help needy children, less fortunate children. This past Christmas, we did for 44 kids. We give each of them $100. They walk with a public service person, whether it be a fireman, EMS, or a police officer. They shop, they get whatever they want within reason, no guns, no weapons of any type. But we give them that chance to go, which is very, very heartwarming because they come in with their little list and, you know, they don't shop just for themselves. They shop for mom, dad, dogs, any of it. So the public safety, we do fundraisers during the year, and that's actually what funds these foundations. I also have a scholarship foundation set up through the Outer Banks Community Foundation, which is for any high school individual which is pursuing anything in criminal justice. It is awarded this year. We gave out 2 $500 scholarships to a Manio individual and a First Flight individual. And we just do things to help. When we did the 44 kids, we also helped 6 families that did not have food for the holidays. So anything that anyone contacts us with, if we have the money, then we spend it on those that are in need. I was approached by a gentleman that works for one of the cement companies and used to be actually a police officer in Terrell County, and he wanted to give back. He owns Outer Banks trophies, and so he contacted me to see if I wanted to be a part of it and give something on my behalf. The public safety, we're out there to help anyone that's in public safety. So I told him that I would do it, but I wanted it to be presented on behalf of the Outer Banks Public Safety. So we started it. Every 3 months, we go to a different police department. The police department is contacted to let them know that it's their turn. They pick an officer that is outstanding, that has gone beyond the call of duty, and they give me the name. We have it printed up, and I guess that they will come up and speak on behalf of the officer that will be receiving it. But we just wanted to do something for police officers, anyone that's not in that field. I mean, you just don't realize what they face every year. Their families. I mean, I didn't know that it was going to be the last time that I saw my husband when he left to go to work. But they do the job because they love the job. And we just wanted to show them that we do appreciate them. And we appreciate what they do. We appreciate them protecting us. And so we are doing this every 3 months to a different department just to acknowledge police officers and give them a little bit that they actually deserve back in return. So, thank you.
Good evening, Board. If you have not met Detective Kevin Davey, this is Detective Kevin Davey, and he's the recipient of the award tonight. To paraphrase a famous senator, Kevin Davey, I knew Earl Murray, and he would have liked you a lot, actually. And I will just share a little to kind of get the mood a little lighter here tonight for the award. We were approached as a department that we needed to send somebody to speak to the Daughters of the American Revolution, their meeting, and we thought Kevin would be perfect. And if you haven't heard him speak yet, he's actually from Great Britain, and he thought that was not a great idea, but he was willing to do it, which just shows what kind of guy that he is. Kevin has been with us for about almost coming up on 2 years now. And since joining our department, he's exemplified the quality of the officers that should be considered for this award. In the past year, since joining the Criminal Investigation Division, where I work, I've come to know him better and understand the qualities that he possesses that make him one of the outstanding officers of this agency. He regularly receives compliments from the public, which is not an easy thing to do these days. And even from other officers about his level of professionalism. He is dogged in the pursuit of justice, which you want in any police officer. And by way of an example, earlier this year, you may recall, and I'm sure some of you received phone calls about the vandal that was known as Lurch, who was going around tagging everything in town, street signs. The back of the Dare Center was a favorite target. The back of Seagate North was a favorite target. Literally dozens, if not 100 different tagging incidents. And vandalism is one of those crimes that bothers the community, but because it's not a high felony, it sometimes gets put to the back burner because there's other, more pressing cases. Well, Kevin took that on as his project, and I think he photographed just about every incident, and he was very familiar with the artwork of Lurch, and through his pursuit of the investigation, he recognized the artwork when he was following up on a lead at a house, and sure enough, it was that individual, and he made the arrest later and charged him with numerous counts of property damage, and we got some money back for property owners and closed that case. And then if that wasn't enough, he did it again a few months later with another vandal that popped up and started tagging Miss Rheubottom's place of business and other fine parts of the town. And he did that in a lot quicker time. I guess he was, he'd learned from his first go round how to catch a vandal. But it's, like I said, it's a crime that's not high up there on the scale of felonies and high misdemeanors, but it's one that even though it was important to him to solve, and he did it. But he approaches every case that way. Everything gets that level of dedication and determination. He can shift from sort of the more cerebral aspects of investigating cases to the more physical aspects that are required in law enforcement. We recently had an unruly gathering of Kelly's patrons after a rap concert or something that they had there. They gathered at our 7-Eleven, and of course a fight broke out. While the other officers were dealing with the fight, Kevin Davey was there, and he basically held back the crowd with his command presence and his ass baton. Being a British officer, he knows quite well how to use the stick. And without having to injure anybody, he kept those officers safe and let them do what they had to do. He's one of the most selfless individuals. I've worked with him in my career. He's always ready to help fellow investigators by covering calls or coming out to help out on calls. And sometimes it's the little things about somebody that help you understand how selfless they are. And Detective Davey actually lives in Elizabeth City, but he maintains a residence in Manteo so that he can work for our agency. Now, I don't know of anybody else on a cop salary that is willing to make that kind of sacrifice to be a police officer for our agency. But Kevin Davey is willing to do that, and his wife is willing to put up with it. So, kudos to her for that as well. He's a team player. He always volunteers for assignments that come before CID. He works well with everybody in our agency, comes in early, works late, and just a no-friction, stand-up kind of guy. So, Kevin, you deserve this award. Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, colleagues, this was a surprise. I didn't know about this until I walked in the door this evening. But I would like to say that it's an honour and a privilege to receive this award, the Earl Murray Award. It's an honour and a privilege to work for the town of Kill Devil Hills and the people of Kill Devil Hills. And it's been an honour and a privilege to work with my colleagues. And I never forget, I am just a small cog in a big wheel. And so my thanks really to the department, and they deserve this as much as anyone else. Thank you.
And Mayor and Commissioners, if I may add, Sergeant Towler is very humble, and he's the one that nominated his colleague, Kevin Davey. But Sergeant Towler was remiss in
he was just awarded the Medal of Merit for his actions taken during the first of the year when he disarmed a suicidal female that was going to commit suicide by cop. So kudos to him. David Pierce was awarded the Commendation Medal along with Justin Langley for their acts as well in that episode. So kudos go to the whole department, actually. You know, they play a real big part, and as Ms. Murray stated, that, you know, not only the officers, but their families give of themselves, and so they're all to be applauded, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything you would like?
I just want to say thanks to you all. You're a wonderful, exemplary example of the town of Kill Devil Hills, and I'm proud that you're a representation for us. So you're right. It's a tough job, and people are very quick to be to say the bad things, but you're not the first on their list to get rewarded, and people saying good things. So I'm glad to see something like this happening, and I'm glad to see somebody finally rewarding you for what you do, because you do put your lives on the line every day. So thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to say the same. It's, my eyes were opened quite a bit, having just come off last month of the grand jury for serving on that for Dare County for over a year. And trust me, I saw Officer Davies and John Towler both quite frequently, once a month over there, and the number of cases is just astounding. It's mind-boggling, in all honesty, and I'm kudos to the whole KDH department and what they do to try to bring these cases to a close.
Oh, I want to also commend everybody in the police department for the job that they do. My little anecdote, my wife's grandfather was a police officer in Pittsburgh, and we have pictures of him. He started off riding a horse, and then he graduated to a motorcycle, and there's some really interesting pictures of him sitting on his motorcycle. We have them hanging in our hall, as a matter of fact. I'd also like to add one thing. I was going to bring it up under the Commissioner's agenda, but it seems more appropriate right here. There was a letter sent to Chief Britt in July from Mr. Stephen Turner in Yorktown, Virginia, commending Officer Langley for the way he handled an accident that Mr. Turner's wife was involved in. I'm not going to read the whole letter, but he was very complimentary not only of Officer Langley, but of the entire force. And once again, this shows that the dedication of our department and how much we all rely on them. And there's someone here that's from out of town, which is, it's nice to see that the people recognize it, even the visitors. So congratulations to all of you, and thanks for the job you do.
Thank you. And before moving on, I want to say thank you as well. And I know Kim stepped out, but with this award and recognition, certainly it's a great way to honor police officers and those in law enforcement, and what a wonderful way to, every 3 months still keep the presence of her husband and the memory of her husband there and in the forefront. So I think that's wonderful, and congratulations to Detective Davey again. So thank you for your service. Okay, next on the agenda, we'll move to the public hearing. There will be one public hearing this evening. The public hearing is called for the purpose of the Kill Devil Hills Board of Commissioners to receive comments from the public regarding requested amendment to Chapter 153 zoning, Section 153.051D, nonconformities to nonconformities, lots of records, and Section 153.100E, Ocean Impact Residential Zone, Site Requirements, Exceptions, to create consistent language for nonconforming lots. We do ask this evening if you wish to speak at this public hearing. If you're speaking as an individual, we ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, we ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes. We did have a sign-up sheet specific for the public hearing this evening. However, there were no signatures. That doesn't mean there's still not an opportunity. So if anyone would like to speak this evening at this public hearing, this is the time specifically set aside, though, for this topic. If you'll please approach the lectern and identify yourself by name and address. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak at this public hearing? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Excuse me. Greg, would you like to do an introduction for us, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor and Board, this was an amendment that was submitted by Ben Gallup, Cornthal, Riley, Ellis, and Malin on behalf of Florence Christensen to try to clarify a section of our zoning ordinance. And tonight we have John Parker with the same firm, who is here somewhere, I think, sitting in the back. That if there's any questions, he's more than familiar with this request. And what's happened is we found a section in our ordinance that currently allows an exception for lots less than 50 feet to be occupied by a single-family dwelling on the ocean front, the ocean impact zone. And what Mr. Gallup's concern was that there may be some room to argue that, the way our ordinance is written, so he's taken painstaking steps to make sure that there's no argument that you can build on a lot that's 45 feet or greater with a single-family dwelling in the ocean impact zone, so long as you meet all the other requirements that are set forth in that zoning district. And that's the request that's before you, and the staff supports it.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions or questions of the attorney that's here?
Mayor, I have a question of Greg,
Okay.
if I could.
Certainly.
Greg, when I was reading this afternoon, I noticed it said such lot may be occupied by, it says one family. Shouldn't it have said one single family dwelling? The amendment?
Oh, I see, yeah.
Trying to find
Here on the back
exactly where you are. Page
Yes.
1.
Exceptions E.
It's on the back page, Greg.
All the way at the top.
Yes, that's one single-family dwelling.
Mine doesn't read that way. Okay.
Occupied by one.
So where it says one family should say one
Single
single-family dwelling on page 2 of 2 at the top.
That's the intent, yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion by the board?
No, I just want to add that I spoke to Greg earlier today, and what this will do, in addition to what Greg said, is it'll eliminate the need for somebody to, in the past, whenever somebody wanted to do this, they'd have to go and get a variance on it. And the adoption of this amendment would remove the necessity for them to have to go through the board to get a variance. So I think it's helpful to everybody in this case.
All right, there's no, someone like to make a motion?
Excuse me, Mayor, before that motion's made, if it could be made that would reflect the town attorney's comment.
Add the change to the motion.
Yes, ma'am. To the amendment.
I'd like to make the motion then.
Yeah, but it just has that there. It just has it filled in.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request for amendment to Chapter 153 zoning, 153.051D, nonconformities, nonconforming lots of record, and 153.100E, ocean impact residential zone, site requirements, exceptions to create consistent language for nonconforming lots with the correction on the last page where we just talked about, where we put single-family dwelling in place of the word family. The Board of Commissioners finds that this request amendment to Chapter 153 zoning, I'm not going to read it all, et cetera, to create consistent language for nonconforming lots is consistent with all comprehensive plans or other officially adopted plans of the town of Kill Devil Hills that are applicable, and the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest because it does not place an undue hardship on owners of nonconforming lots of record platted before current regulations existed, and creates buildable lots within the town, provided other requirements can be met.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion by the board? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the time set aside this evening for the first public comment option or opportunity tonight. This would be anyone that would wish to speak at public comment on any topic. Again, though, we do ask if you wish to speak to please, if you're speaking as an individual, limit your time to 3 minutes, and if you're speaking on behalf of a group, limit your time to 5 minutes. We did have a sign-up sheet for this as well, so I will start with that individual and then certainly call upon the floor if anyone would like to speak as well. We do ask when you approach the lectern that you identify yourself by name and address, please. And first, Mr. Al DeGita signed up.
Al DeGita, I live at 1000 Blue Jay Street. Chronic complainer about noise. Last night the pit was loud as could be. I had an officer come, I think his name is Bostwich. He came, and if you want to talk to him about noise, he came to my house, because I had him come to my house so he could hear it for himself. And I mean, literally they have a DJ out on the front deck at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was loud. And even the officer that was assisting him said, I was coming down the bypass with my windows up and I could hear it all the way up the bypass. It's extremely loud. They're having a double DJ tomorrow. If you all want to go out with your meter or something just to get a sample of it, that might help you out for the noise. I see it's coming up, so I might be a little premature, but it's definitely getting out of hand. Any help with that would be greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening at public comment? Okay, we will move to the next agenda item, which is response to public comment. And Al, thank you for your comment. We are going to discuss this later on the agenda. So, does anyone have anything else with that? Just wait till then. Okay. All right. Next, we'll move into, since there is not any old business, we'll move to new business. The first item under new business, item number 1, recommendation for bid acceptance for the 2012 Fall Streets and Drainage Improvements Project and Budget Amendment.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. This evening, we do have those recommendations, and with us, the town engineer, Pete Burkhimer, who can address that. And also, while Pete is coming to the microphone, I'd like to also introduce Steve Albright, who is in the audience with us this evening. And for those of you that do not know, Steve is our new Public Services Director. He'll be taking over September the 1st from Randy Metzler, who retired, or will be retiring after, almost 32 years. Steve's been with the town since 2002. He began in the planning department and then went on to Randy's position as the Assistant Public Services Director when Randy moved up from that position into Daryl Merrill, who also retired. So we're really happy to have Steve in this new position, and we're very grateful to the service that Randy gave to the town. And I also have to just share this with everyone this evening. Steve was away on a family wedding this weekend in Michigan. And he said, I'll be back for the meeting. And I'm like, Steve, really? You don't need to get back for the meeting. But we see where he is. He flew in sometime this afternoon, and probably flew in his car from Norfolk to get here. So anyway, just wanted to let everyone know that we're very pleased to have him in this new position. And Pete, now it's yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Manager. Madam Mayor, members of the board, I'm Pete Burkhimer, practicing at 3351 Stone Shore Road in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Just a couple of items before I get into this recommendation. A little over 7 years ago, I began the service as town engineer, and I've gotten to work with a lot of wonderful people, town staff, commissioners. One of the fine folks that I've enjoyed working with over those years is Mr. Jay Halkati with RPC Contracting, who is an estimator and project manager there. And picking up on the mayor's invitation for us to remember people in thoughts and prayers, Jay lost his mother, who was 93, just last night. And in his place, on behalf of RPC, is Eddie Valdivieso, who is now full-time with the firm. And but I thought it would be good for those of us who know Jay just to think of him and say a little prayer for him if you're so inclined in this time of his loss. And of course, be thankful that anybody got 93 good years of living too. Secondly, yeah, Steve's a pretty dedicated guy. I was on the way down here this afternoon, saw him thumbing by the road and picked him up and gave him a ride. We were able to conserve some gas that way. Our fall project this year, as approved by you to design and put out to bid several months ago, is the Wright Woods neighborhood, which includes essentially a rebuild of the streets, the backbone of which, Parkwood Drive, was in poor condition, and the condition of the other crossing cul-de-sacs ranged from, I think, fair to down to poor. All of those will be brought up to excellent or new condition, and we'll go with our standard approach, which is proving to work so well on the storm drainage. A remarkable experience at the bid table just a couple of weeks ago. My engineer's estimate was $398,000. The two bids came in about 6.25% lower than that at $373 and change. Of course, the interesting thing was that it was only change that separated the two. RPC left a whopping $355 on the table with their bid of $373,300, and Barnhill was $355 higher. So that's less than 0.1% for anybody who likes to do the math, and that's just one of those strange coincidences that occur, but it's also indicative of still a favorable bidding climate. The short answer is I'm here to recommend that you accept the low bid of RPC Contracting, Inc., and that we award to them in that amount. And also, my engineering contract for the oversight is in there as well in the amount of $28,000, which will cover my oversight from this point forward through the substantial completion stage and then the full completion stage as they work off their punch list. Beyond that, I'm available to answer any questions that you might have, and we look forward to doing another good project and whittling away at that list of poor streets. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, do you have any questions for Pete?
I don't, no. I'm satisfied with it.
No. Thank you. Okay. If there's no questions, there are no questions or discussion, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid for the 2012-2013 Fall Street and Drainage Improvement Projects and budget amendment as specified by Mr. Burkhimer.
Do we specifically need to add about the,
He could just say as out,
8%.
you could just say as outlined in the town manager's memo.
okay. that
As
covered-
outlined in the town manager's memo.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, under new business, agenda item number 2 is the Sea Ranch Resort request to construct steps to the beach at the East 3rd Street public access. And Greg, would you like to introduce this?
That'd be
Please.
fine. What we have here tonight is we have Mr. George Wood and representatives of the Sea Ranch that are here tonight that simple request they want to access from our access. We currently have a dune crossover located at East 3rd Street where they have a window for food service and they want to be able to access that from our dune crossover rather than build something else. And I think the attorney has talked about if you're going to do that, you're going to own it. And it's a matter of policy whether the board really wants that or whether they don't. There's maintenance concerns if you do, and there's trying to help the business and trying to look out for another person that's trying to do business in town is another issue. So I think that Mr. Michael said that we probably want to check with our insurance carrier and make sure they're okay, and we also want to make sure it's built to our standard, which is somewhat higher than the building code in a lot of cases, because we don't want to go out and maintain it as much as maybe somebody that wants to build to the minimum code. So those are a couple of things I want you to keep in mind if you decide to act favorably on this.
Okay. And would the folks that are here, would anyone like to speak this evening?
You're moving kind of slow there, Mr. Wood.
George is
George,
moving a
all
little
right?
slow.
No.
There's a story behind this.
But will we hear the real story?
Seriously, guys.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the board. I am George Wood, and I'm a consultant representing Sea Ranch. Also representing the Sea Ranch tonight here is Tom Redd, who's the Director of Construction Management for DPM Partners LLC, which owns the Sea Ranch, and also Barbara Gustler, who's the General Manager of the Sea Ranch Resort itself. We're here to answer any questions that you may have. In your packet, you received a letter of request for the construction. It's been our observation that our visitors and citizens that enjoy the oceanfront beach and 3rd Street access sometimes want to buy something to eat or a drink, and there's only 2 or 3 ways to do that. One is to traipse over the dune, which is what sometimes occurs. The other is to walk down 3rd Street access and go across the street or into other places, which is a long walk and can be kind of dangerous. The third is to walk through the restaurant, which a lot of people that are on the beach are reluctant to do because they're in beach attire and it's a little, well, I wouldn't want to do it. So, and I think some of those don't either. So we have made application to build another dune crossover so that we could access this part of their facility. But it just seemed like it was largely unnecessary to do that. If we could form a partnership with the town and address the issues that were raised by the town's attorney and by your staff in deciding how the construction would occur, who would have ownership, how it would be maintained, and what its purpose would be. So we are here tonight to try to answer any questions that you may have with regards to this concept. We have provided you with a plan showing how it could be constructed, and we have some other ideas as well on construction depending on what you may have with regards to your questions.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Wood? Or
I
for
have a couple.
representatives here? Okay.
George, I understand that the applicant is more than willing to do the construction based on the planning board's objectives and guidelines, is that correct?
That is very correct.
And I'm also advised that the applicant is aware that once completed, that portion of the access is town property.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure those two, and a third is that any maintenance to that portion of, repairs to that portion of the access, they're responsible for. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I have somewhat of a procedural question too. Is this something, if we were to move forward with some of these things that you all just verbally agreed to, and you're phrasing it as a kind of a public-private partnership, in addition, or I guess I'm wondering, would there be like a memorandum of agreement that would be executed in addition to whatever we set forth for construction? Okay,
Yeah.
and that's where this would be spelled out, and, okay.
Right.
And it would all be spelled out, and this would belong to the town. If the town decided to do away with it at some point, the town can do away with it.
Right.
And when we talk about maintenance costs, if the steps had to be replaced because something had happened, before we close it off, they would have the opportunity to pay to have those steps repaired, and the town could do that. But if they didn't want to do that, the town could say they're gone.
Gotcha.
And another question, I'm sorry, did I?
No, you're fine. No, you're fine.
Okay. If, when you mentioned, Greg, that built to town standards, do those standards require handicap accessibility, or is that based on what's on the other side, or?
I can't answer that 100%. It may be a desire that you want to have it. I think that it may be required. The building inspector brought it up as an issue and talked to Mr. Wood about it, and he's prepared to address that as an issue. We're checking with Laurel Wright. She is the state expert on accessibility.
Okay.
And we'll have an answer probably tomorrow on that. In terms of required, but it may be something you want to, the access, it's currently handicapped accessible to that point, so it may be something that the board will want to require anyway, or consider at least.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one. I understand that there was possibly some CAMA issues, but that's been resolved. Is that correct, George?
You want to answer that first, or do you want to answer the access? Let Tom talk about the access first. And then I'll-
Okay, all right.
What we had done, because we're very sensitive to, people with obstacles on, and we actually had a plan done. I've got copies of it that I don't know if they've seen it, which we can show you where I had Ray Meekins at Seaboard look at this, and we can both incorporate steps and a handicapped ramp within the public right-of-way. So, can you walk that far? But, it would be our intent to go on and, after talking with Matt, people would have to get there, somehow. Now, the ramp will only go to where it dives into the sand. It doesn't go all the way over to the window, because everything, we're trying to keep the coverage to a minimum, and this all stays within the public right-of-way.
So instead of coming out, Tom, straight, which the original plan was, you would come out to a proposed landing and then steps on the east side and a ramp on the west side.
That is correct. That is correct.
So we wanted to be able to demonstrate that we could construct the
Right.
access one of two ways, depending on the requirements and the desires of the town, so. With regards to the CAMA issue, I contacted Ms. Charlene Owens, who is the land planner for the Division of Coastal Management in Elizabeth City. I sent her the request and the two plans to see if there were issues that would arise from this being an access that was built by grant from the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources. She reviewed the plan and says that there's no conflict. It will require approval by DENR, but it'll also require a CAMA minor permit. The permit will be issued to the town. It would be processed by the Elizabeth City office as is normal. That sort of thing.
Greg, did I hear you say something about insurance and that that has not been run through our insurance carrier, or that it was going?
That was just a discussion that the attorney and I had. He felt quite certain that it wouldn't be a problem. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but as I recall the conversation, we need to notify our insurance company about the change, just like we would if we built a new access.
Certainly, it's something we want to notify them about and let them know how we're doing this to
Right.
make sure that we're covered for this completely. And I'm sure they will. We did one in Kitty Hawk, a beach crossover, pretty much the same way. But we did check with the insurance carrier and make sure before we did it.
Exactly. So I'd say we want to make sure we do this pending the fact that insurance says it's okay.
Well, pending a
Well,
final agreement.
final
absolutely,
agreement.
we would approve.
And just to follow up on the CAMA issue, I just asked Mr. Redd if DPM Partners would bear the cost of the application fee and other expenses for the application, and they will. So,
George, on the east side where the steps come down, I don't, as far as the egress, I guess, would be, I don't see a problem there, but on the handicap ramp, hypothetically, if someone comes up our ramp in a wheelchair and then turns onto that platform and then down the ramp, they're sitting in the sand. I mean,
yes, that's
and
correct. Yes.
That's, I don't, that seems to me to be a problem.
Well, without creating some sort of solid surface, the only option is for, if it's a wheelchair, there are wheelchairs that can be used in the sand. There's really not much option for someone that was already on the beach that maybe is disabled.
Right.
They'll probably already be in one of those chairs, and if not, then certainly they still have the option of going up through the restaurant. It's not going to exclude them from that access. It's just that we're trying to find a way that accommodates those people that come off the beach without having to come through the restaurant in their bathing suits. I saw somebody today when I was out there jump over the side of the rail and go into the restaurant. You know, I mean, so they desire to do it to the extent they're willing to jump over. They were certainly a lot younger than I am.
So we don't need the steps then, right?
We might not. Well,
They can just jump over.
if you heard the story of why I'm limping around, you'd know that I couldn't do that.
I noticed you
So-
have two different kind of shoes on there.
Yes, and with no disrespect, I have injuries that won't allow me to wear shoes.
I have another question too. That line of pilings there on the drawing, it appears as though they're on town property. And do you have any idea what their purpose is or was? And would the applicant be willing to remove them if the town felt that was a necessity?
Well, those pilings are low spot elevations. Those are elevations.
The pilings he's talking about are these pilings along here.
Okay, yes.
And,
bunch of them.
you know, it's interesting because, and I talked both to Meredith and Matt, and I've talked to Randy Saunders, who is the original owner that we bought the Sea Ranch from. And nobody seems to know who put those things in. And somebody said, well, maybe the Pearl put them in. Well, believe me, I don't see the Pearl spending that kind of money, and particularly since those pilings go all the way out to the end of the town's access ramp. So we just don't know why they're there or where they came from.
So you don't even know necessarily whether the Stee Ranch put them there or not, or whether,
Well, the previous owners, which was Randy Saunders and various people, Cliff Barkley and them, Blakely, I'm sorry, and they said they did not put it in. And the Pearl, the people from the Pearl, that was a leased facility. They are no longer here in Kill Devil Hills or in the area, so, yeah.
oh, Greg, you told me earlier, you don't know how they got there or what they're for either, right?
No.
No, sir, I don't know. I suspect it may have been somebody that was connected to the Sea Ranch. I don't think the town did it. That may have been trying to keep people from driving. It's also an emergency access, and I think it was 2007 or 6 when we put this access in and improved it, put a ramp in. It might have gone in before that, but I don't remember the history on those pilings, sir. Sometimes they happen on the weekend.
I don't know if is that something of a concern to us, that they're there or not, do you think?
Well, they've been there all this time. Why is there all of a sudden a certain concern?
Well, like in the one picture, there's tabletops on 3 of them,
If that's,
or 4 of them.
it brings to our attention that there's something there that is an encroachment on our right of way. And if we want them there, then I guess it's okay. If we don't, then we should probably have them removed.
And to answer your question about the tabletops, the tabletops are actually, when we bought the hotel, were on there and they were in a very poor shape from weather and all. They had rusted nails and all we did was just the fear of people getting injured. We took the old ones off, put new ones on 5 of them. But there are, I think, about 10 pilings there that go all the way out. And quite candidly, when Ray Meekins and I were looking at this, we're going to be so tight to where those are, we might have to take those tops off anyhow to make sure everything works and you have the 6-foot ADA requirement width-wise and all, so.
Okay.
Well, looking at the plan, Tom, it looks like they're going to be underneath the ramp.
Not really. They might-
Well, I mean, the way that drawing's drawn, at least those 4 pilings, I see
Yeah.
I see 2 of them at least underneath of it and 2 of them just to the south of them.
Yeah, and this drawing was just to be, it's really more a sketch than a fully engineered drawing.
Yeah.
Quite candidly,
Right.
some of those pilings might be, after I talked to a contractor and all and talked to the town, might be beneficial in what we use to construct the
foundation.
ramp and the foundation and all. We don't know that yet. This was just to represent that, yes, we could get everything within the public right-of-way and keep it as simple and as clean as possible. Yeah, if there's a reason for removing them, I'm sure it can't be that much while we're in there doing the other work to remove them. But keep in mind, you're going, at that point, start going all the way out into the dune. Because if you notice, the furthest one out, existing piling on the top end
Is right at-
beyond- is actually beyond the end of the town's access. And it seems a little bizarre that somebody would do that and spend that kind of money.
I just have one last question, I guess, is, I don't know who could answer it, but are we talking about this thing with the ramp, or are we talking about the way it was originally presented as far as making an approval or not.
Well, I would think it's going to depend on what we find out from the specialists at the state regarding ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, and what's required.
And that would
Obviously, if
be
it's a
your worst-case
requirement, you have to
scenario.
do that.
Yeah.
So we
But
haven't,
it, excuse me.
we haven't checked with insurance yet, and then we have that issue. So is this something that we might want to have to pull back on until we get all the information?
That would certainly be up to the board, how you want to handle that. You could do it with the conditions.
I think you,
Yeah, the way it's
I think
written.
You want to move forward.
what we were looking for this evening was whether or not the board approved the concept of allowing that, and then with the help of the attorney in drafting a memorandum of understanding or agreement, those issues would be resolved, and the insurance company would certainly be notified. So no, I don't think if you agree with the concept that it needs to come back.
The applicant is agreed to do the ADA if in fact that's
it's
what's
required.
required, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no problem with the concept, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. So we could put a motion in order then, or we could put a motion on that would be to approve the concept and give the attorney and staff basically the direction or discretion to create the memorandum of agreement or understanding with all the conditions that were noted.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you guys like me to make that a motion?
Yeah, part of the memo from the town manager, as Brandi has pointed out in the last paragraph, is construct, of course, it's a little bit more than steps, but to the east of Third Street Public Access, subject to approval of arrangements by the town attorney to protect the public's interest. So,
Yes, sir.
And those specific arrangements we discussed were insurance, building to town standards, ADA.
Maintenance.
And
maintenance.
By the applicant. Would include any CAMA.
Right.
Permitting fees, et cetera.
Okay?
is that your motion, Mayor?
Yes, that is my motion.
Okay. I'll second it, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other discussion, any further discussion by the board? Okay, all those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Next item on the agenda is item new business 3A, which is an appointment to the Historic Landmarks Commission. And I would like to ask Mayor Pro-Tem Hogan, would you?
Yeah, I contacted Jerry Farless today. He had an application in and said he'd be willing to serve on the board. I called him and talked to him, and he said he'd be happy to. And based on that, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Jerry Farless to take the position on the Historic Landmarks Commission.
Second.
Any further discussion? I will note that Ms. Prishay is also here, who serves on that commission. So. And with that, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, item 4A, is regarding scheduling a public hearing for requested amendment to Chapter 153 zoning, Section 153.076D, off-street parking and loading, table of parking requirements, to modify parking requirements for rental business for storage area. Greg, may I call on you, please?
Absolutely. What you have tonight is a request from the Waddington Corporation. Most everybody knows it better as Metro Rentals, the folks that own Metro Rentals, and they would like to change the parking for rental businesses, rental shops is the way it's defined in our ordinance, to 1 to 400 square feet, from 1 to 200 square feet. to that area that's not subject to the public interaction. So what they would like to see is that the board take the zoning ordinance and basically say, if you've got 1,800 square feet of showroom area and X square feet of non-showroom area where you might store and clean your equipment, that you have two different parking standards, if I understand Mr. Strader correctly. And Mike Strader and representatives from Bissell and the Boddington Corporation are here tonight. They'd be happy to speak on it, I'm sure. But that's the request that's before you, that you have segment that public area away from the area which, in his particular business, would be the storage and movement of all his rental equipment. And at the planning board level, they had a recommendation of denial. I think it was 5-1, is that right? I think it was. And as the manager has identified, if you would like to accept this request and move it forward for a public hearing, then I would suggest that you are ready to either deny the request or approve it. And if you think it needs more work, then possibly send it back to the staff and the planning board. And one of the items that was discussed is we don't really have a definition for rental shops. And there was also some discussion of possible concessions that could be made by the requester. So if you'd like to hear from the applicant, Madam Mayor, they are here.
Okay, thank you. And yes, I would. So welcome whomever wants to speak this evening. If you'll approach the lectern and again identify yourself, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Board of Commissioners. I'm the owner up there of the Woodard Corporation, the building there. We started out 22 years ago, and the mayor back then was so nice. I can remember that I wanted to put 1/3 of the building up, and because I didn't have any money to do the rest of it. It was bad times like we're having now. And I went ahead and I met my commitment and put the other 2/3 up within the time period. I did it in 2 years instead of 3, which they had given me. I'm retired now. I live in Costa Rica. My son Rob runs the business. He's a fine young man. I'm not saying just because he's my son, he is. And we've outgrown it. We've used to rent equipment, as you will probably all know. We don't rent equipment anymore. There's no more building on the beach. At least not to warrant what we had. So he's went ahead on his own, and he's made an event rental business, which is starting to do very, very well because of all the weddings. It's almost the wedding capital of the East Coast of the United States now here in Kill Devil Hills. We're not asking a lot. We never fill the parking lot up with customers. We're going to have less customers, per se, than we had in the past when renting tools. Right now, we're doing weddings. And we don't do half a dozen weddings a day or 20 weddings a day. You know, it's probably like 50 or 60, whatever, over the year's period. And the people that come in usually will come in on weekends or by appointment during the week or whatever. We don't have the traffic flow. We don't need all that parking. It's absolutely ridiculous. There is no more equipment. It worked all right when we had equipment. We do have storage trailers there. I came back from Costa Rica. I hate them. I don't like them at all. So what we wanted to do is put a building up that would accommodate the storage of what we rent. We're not a warehouse. We don't have stuff, big tractor trailers coming in, loading and then shipping them out to a bunch of other stores. We're strictly storage for ourselves and cleaning and maintaining the equipment. And I promise you folks that if we're allowed to do this, it'll be an area that you'll be very proud of here in Kill Devil Hills. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone from the board wish to either have questions since we have representatives or open the discussion?
If you have any questions at all, my son will be happy to answer. He's more on it than I am. Some of he is when I'm not around. Do you have any questions as well?
I don't have any questions for him, but I have a question for Greg, or actually confirm something I spoke to him about earlier. At present, we don't allow storage in the commercial zone, correct?
It's not one of the permitted uses in terms of going in and doing a warehouse in the commercial zone. And that's where the planning board, that's where they came down. They were saying that, okay, right now, currently, we mostly have 100 to 200 square foot parking regulation type businesses, which are offices and retail. And that's pretty much the way that things started out at Metro Rental. They had their office and then a couple more that they rented out, those 1,800 square foot units. And of course, it's changed and times change and business models change, and now they find that they need more storage space. And you know, when I read the definition of warehouse, and then I read the definition of furniture store, and you know, the only other 1 to 400 use that's in this particular zoning district, our commercial zone, is the one that is for a furniture store that is greater than 4,000 square feet. And those two would be, if you changed it, those would be the only two that would be allowed in the commercial zone. Now, the furniture store has a peculiarity because they need a lot of floor for display. The peculiarity with the rental shop is they need a lot of storage for their equipment that they rent. So the planning board was saying, well, we don't want to see that commercial real estate used as warehousing. And is it warehousing? Well, that's up for you guys to decide. By our definition, you could call it warehousing. It's not break and bulk warehousing at all. It's a service they provide. So it's different than the Pepsi company coming in and renting a building and bringing it in big trucks and moving it off in little trucks. It's certainly different than that. And if you decide that you want to move forward with this in this concept, then we could take your guidance and go back to the staff and the planning board and bring back some regulations that narrowly define a rental shop. I've had discussions that maybe there even needs to be 2 classes of rental shops, because this is more of an event rental shop where you can't go pick up a kayak or a boat or a umbrella or a bicycle. You're not going to have that type of use at this particular business model. So there may be some event type rental company that comes out of it falls in a different category.
Okay, so I think 2 more things. Number one, as we all know, we're not site-specific, so whatever we do here could apply to anywhere in the commercial district,
And that would have to be taken into consideration.
which is from the beach road to basically most of the businesses bordering the bypass on the west. Includes the whole between the highways. And another point that the town has always had a policy in various zones for the highest and best use of the property. And I guess it's a matter of opinion whether or not this storage, for instance, or warehousing, whichever you call it, would be the highest and best use in the commercial zone. I think those are some of the things that we might have to deal with when we're deciding. I think personally, I'm not a big fan of having that storage or warehousing in the commercial zone. I'm not saying that we couldn't come up with a way to do it, but just on its face, I don't agree with that.
Well, Mayor, rather than just outright deny, I'm sure the applicant would be willing to take this other option, at least hopefully they would, to allow themselves to work with the staff to possibly revise the request and address those concerns I know the place quite well. I've rented from you in the past. I don't know that they would, whatever you're gonna add there, it's gonna look like a warehouse. I have a feeling it would probably architecturally fit in with what's there. Maybe I'm assuming that. But I think in this particular case, with a long-standing business owner in our community, we need to do whatever we can to help them make this work. And rather than to outright deny this, I would be more inclined to, hopefully, the applicant would be receptive to going back to staff and working with them and see if we can't get some language and some numbers that both sides could live with, rather than deny this, or to set a public hearing for the 400. I'm more inclined to do that.
I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, actually. I see both sides of this. My problem is not at all with you guys, because I have no doubt that you're going to do exactly what you say you're going to do. And I'm with Bob. I've rented from you guys and know that you're top notch. My concern again is that if we make this change, what else might come? And I think if we do this, we've got to be really, really careful how we word this and what we do with it, because again, even if we word it such that it's a rental shop, and looking at the fact that 66% of it's storage, and if you word it with the secondary usage, you can't even really do that, because it's not the secondary part of it. So there's some concerns with that. So I'm with Bob on the fact that I think we need to send it back and work with it on it, because I do think it's in the best interest of the town and the business to do that. But at the same time, I think we need to be really, really careful how we do that, because I know there's some really, really smart person out there that can figure out a way to come in and make a warehouse. And although we have a really, really smart attorney now, so we're good to go.
Well, a couple of thoughts that I have on this, and well, first I will say I'm right there. I think at the end of the day, we need to send this back and have staff really work on this with you all. We have a business that's been here 22 years, that's been an asset in our community, and I think it's our responsibility to do that, to look at a way. Times are changing. I certainly understand that when you look at how businesses grow and thrive and are successful, you change with the times. I'm in the field of telemedicine. I mean, that wasn't here, in that as a field even 15 years ago to the level it is. And so I think it's our responsibility to stay with those times and see, what are the trends that are affecting businesses to shift and change, and then how do we respond to those? This is presenting itself as a challenge or opportunity because of the environment and how this business needed to change to be profitable and serve the community, the larger Dare community, as it's a need. I mean, obviously, if the need wasn't there, you wouldn't be doing this, but there is. The wedding business or industry is huge here. And, I do see this completely different than a warehouse. They are taking internet sales and telephone sales and bookings and working with wedding planners and brides, and they need to be able to go get that stuff and deliver it and complete their service by accessing what's there on their site. And I agree with you on the set that not only would they build new construction, but they would have to, based on where it is, to the architectural standards, so it wouldn't be what you see in the industrial zone as far as a warehouse if we were to try to work this out. I do recognize and hear what you're saying, Brandi and Mike, about whatever we do isn't just site specific, so we have to look broader at the impact in the town. along with that, though, just by where the lot is and the size of the lot and what they're capable of doing, I'm hoping that there's some compromise, or, there's a creative strategy if we work hard enough to find that would be a win-win. So certainly, I would like to send this back to the staff and request that they work on that creative solution without compromising the zoning district and the future, which is what you've recognized. And if you're comfortable with that, that could be a motion?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So that will be a motion.
And I'll second that, Mayor.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 4B, under scheduled public hearings. It's to schedule a public hearing for proposed amendment to Chapter 153 zoning, Section 153.082E exceptions to exempt development within town granted easements from lot coverage calculations. And Greg?
I might be finished with it before I can find it. But basically, what we have here tonight is something that makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of if I ask you for an easement and you grant it to the municipality, then you won't be charged lot coverage against that easement if we decide to put a sidewalk or a bike path or some hardened surface out on your land. So that's the gist of it. We're trying to make sure that our ordinance doesn't penalize you for giving me an easement. So I think that this language does that. I'll get to it here in a minute. So that's the long and short of it. So I think it's a good request, and I'd like to see the board schedule a public hearing.
I'll move it, we do so, Mayor.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
And that would be September 10th.
September the 10th at 7 p.m.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, since we adjusted our agenda, the next item on the agenda is the commissioner's agenda.
Actually.
Oh, did I skip something? Oh, I'm sorry,
ma'am.
goodness.
No, trying
That's a really
noise.
big one.
You really didn't want to address that one, did you?
It's a big one because we're going to be here a little while. No, I am so sorry. Let's go back. Item number 5, draft ordinance, Chapter 130, general offenses, noise. Yeah, this is a big one. Okay. Greg, is this you to introduce, or is this a combination of
It's a combination of
Attorney
him and
I
Steve?
certainly hope that it's the town attorney.
Okay.
But I'll try to do it if I can.
We had all hoped it was the town attorney.
Well,
There we go. Okay.
I think
By
what-
consensus.
Well, what we should all be doing, we should all be over in Manio tonight, sitting in the planning board
That's right.
for the county, where they're considering exactly the same thing, and they're taking public comment tonight on it, because they have a proposed ordinance that they're looking at, which is surprisingly similar to exactly what we have and what we're doing. As a matter of fact, when I got a copy of the county ordinance this week, I sort of stopped and said, well, let's see where they go with this and what they're going to do. And you have sort of a draft, and be honest with you, when I went back through our old ordinance, I found some things in it that needed to be changed for the residential section as well, which we'll have to address at some point. But we got the decibel meter, we've taken some readings all around town at various times. And I'll have to ask the gentleman who complained about the pit last night, is this the first time you've had that issue since you
No.
were here last time, or has
No.
it happened again? We're not hitting it at the right times, apparently.
Tomorrow night you go there around, it'll start about 11.
Okay.
But I mean, you go around there at 1 o'clock and have it cranking. You get a good reading.
They didn't have a decibel meter out there last night, I take it.
I don't think he did. It was just by ear.
Because the readings that we've gotten from various places just have not demonstrated a significant noise problem. But that doesn't mean that we don't have noise in the town. Obviously, we do. Some of the highest readings we've got are just from ambient traffic noise traffic going by at various intersections, and so you do get a lot of noise generated in that way.
Chief, do we have to have a complaint for you to go do that, or can you have somebody on that shift tomorrow night take a reading?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll take care of that.
And I think.
don't have that complaint.
That's what we've been getting the readings
Yeah,
without
the police have been doing the readings for us, and I think, Mary, did you include all those readings in their packages? Say
They had gotten them previous.
Yeah.
You know, the difficult thing for us to do is we have several specific places which seem to generate the complaints over and over, and we need to get some consistent readings from those. Now, the problem we're gonna have, and the issues that we're gonna have to deal with, are the times that we're gonna make whatever our noise ordinance is apply in a commercial zone. We have to decide what we're gonna do when a commercial zone butts up against a residential zone, which level is going to apply. If it's 70 decibels in a commercial zone and it's 60 in a residential, and they're right next door to each other, which level applies in that residential zone right next door? Nag's Head says the most restrictive decibel level applies. Wow. If you're in a residential zone and commercial is causing a noise at your residence, then the 60 decibel residential requirement would apply.
Really?
In Nag's Head.
Well-
They're a little bit different in
Yeah.
how they've done this.
Well, they're a little more spread out too.
They are,
And, you know, we need to try to find some happy ground to help these residents. This isn't the first time. We addressed this years and years ago, and never really came to a consensus. You would think that the business owner would have a little bit of respect for that neighborhood, but it appears that that's not the case. So we really do need to try to resolve this and come up with some decimal that we can all live with, be it.
And the earlier discussion about the rental business and the weddings, and that's one of the letters that you may have seen in your package from the wedding business folks down on Hatteras Island. They're objecting to the county's noise ordinance simply because the decibel level that would be applied in the county ordinance would basically eliminate people from renting oceanfront houses and having wedding events out there.
Too loud.
So, you know, there are all sorts of ramifications to what we do besides, you know, just in that little commercial zone. We need to consider what we're doing in the residential area too, when people rent those houses, free oceanfront houses for a wedding, and they exceed the decibel level. Now, in theory, I guess they could come in and get a special permit to do that, and we would have to make some way to make sure they were able to do that, I guess. But and that's why I'm saying we need to watch what goes on at the county tonight, because that will give us some good instruction on some of the issues that we ought to be considering as well.
And, you know, thinking back to your comment about the business owner, and I know last meeting when one of the business owners was here, not the one that you're having the noise issue with, but another one where we had received complaints. And when he's there, apparently things are run a little bit different than when he's not there. And so when he's not there every night when the music's playing too. And so it factors in why it doesn't surprise me that the readings vary night to night when you're taking them, even though there's a band tonight and a band tomorrow night. The noise level may be different because it's also who's running the shop the night that a particular band's playing.
And I know in your package, Mary gave you a noise level chart, and just 60 decibels is normal conversational. You know, that's the level. The conversation we're having right now would be 60 decibels. and that's hopefully not a lot of noise.
Right, yeah, page 36.
So is it your suggestion or that we need to see what kind of public comment comes out of the county's meeting,
Well,
Steve?
I think
Or-
that will be beneficial to us, in addition to getting some readings at these problem times. Certainly, I wish we'd have gotten a decibel reading last night, so we would have something we could talk about. Because so far, we have not gotten any real significant problems. We've seen a few readings in the 70s occasionally, and I think probably the highest reading we got was when we dropped an empty dumpster.
Really?
And what was that level?
Was that an 84?
Okay.
And you also have a list of what other cities have done as far as noise levels, and you'll see the commercials anywhere from 60 to 70. 65 seems to be a level that most of the cities have adopted for their commercial zones.
And we're talking at a 60 right now?
This is a 60 according to what they tell us on this noise level chart.
And we're gonna tell people that they can't be more than 60?
Well, we've already told them that in the residential zone.
Right.
But that's after a certain hour, right? That's not during the day.
I don't think we differentiate. We differentiate, I think our turn off is at is it 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
But that's also with, someone would have to complain that they have a problem with that. Your neighbor.
Wow, that means anybody that's got a barking dog's in trouble.
Yep.
This is maybe a bigger problem for us here than it is maybe in some other places, and mainly because we've got our residential, our commercial district, especially between the highways. There's so many single-family homes there, residences,
And
that
they're butted up to commercial.
they're right next to some sort of facility that has entertainment. And we talked earlier on another issue about, trying to accommodate the businesses. And I think that probably the vast majority of the businesses that have entertainment are going to tell you that it would be difficult for them to make it without it, in the summer especially. They have they have to augment their restaurant business with the alcohol sales and the bands and entertainment bringing people in. So it causes it's a unique situation for us, not just between the highways, but along where the residential areas, but up against as we said, up against the commercial areas. So it's going to be a difficult. I think there's going to have to be some patience shown on both sides in the end, whenever we do come up with what we do come up with. I'm just going to add this, because I went through this several times, and I'm obviously not. I don't have an answer, so I'm still trying to understand it. It's kind of technical a little bit in some ways, and it provokes a lot of thought too.
The one thing that historically we haven't had, I guess, in the commercial zone is a decibel.
You have not.
We have never
not.
had a decibel.
No, we have not.
Yeah, meter reading to be able to do any enforcement. And, well, I think there's still some discussion on what should that decibel reading be. I am of the opinion that we need that. If we're going to have any type of
Absolutely.
an ordinance that's gonna have any meat to it. So when the police is called to be able to do, work with them. On that same note, I have, been very conscientious about not trying to hurt businesses from being business friendly. But I would be curious to, when we're doing these decibel readings tomorrow night and as you continue, and maybe NAG's head officers would know, Kelly's has a band so many nights and they sit right there in front of a residential area. What are the decibel readings coming out of there where they're not getting the complaints and they're doing it all the time? I would just be interested what that is, because maybe that could help provide us some guidance, or even in our own town on nights where there's a band and out. I mean, are there some nights that there's a band that maybe there's a band but you're not hearing it, so to speak? 'Cause I think.
No, I mean, it's just, you hear it sometimes, you don't hear others.
But Al, didn't you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, they take it another level? They take it outside versus inside?
They're actually got their DJ set up outside in the
Right,
front.
so
That's different
yeah,
than
that's entirely different. Mike Kelly, the restaurant, it's inside. I've never, I don't know of him ever having a band outside.
He has, and years and years ago, and I can tell you because I lived
St.
in Nags Head
Patty's Day
Acres.
Parade, he has one
Well,
over back, yeah.
And years ago, he would even, I think there was an Easter party or an Easter egg hunt that they did, and they had a band outside, but it was like a $20 cover, and he sent all the neighbors free tickets. So that's, I mean, he's not stupid.
Well.
I know that because I lived in Nags Head Acres, and you could hear it from where I lived. I mean, but it was one of those things where it was one night, so it's different than what you're talking
Yeah.
about. I mean, it's not constant.
And I did call Kevin Brinkley and talk to him about their experience with their ordinance and how things are
Right.
going. And he said they really don't have a noise problem down there, that it's rare for them to get anything, and if they do, the officers go out and the noise pretty much stops.
Well, when I was the director of the Y, I was in violation of the noise ordinance one day in Nags Head. We had a band at the outdoor pool, and a neighbor called to complain, and the Nags Head police showed up with their decibel meter, and they didn't shut us down, and that's not the intent, but they helped us with the band determine how to set the amplifier.
Right.
So we got it to within the level it could be, and then we went on with our event. And so I think even by putting this in place, as long as we also put it in with the spirit of, we're going to set whatever we can determine is going to allow businesses to do what they need to do and have their bands inside, makes the most sense. But that if there is a complaint and we have this in, then we work with them to get it within that level. And if they can't, then they need to turn it off. But hopefully, I certainly am living proof you can and work within that if you know what those parameters are.
So you got busted, huh?
I did, but I didn't get a ticket, and
So you don't have a record, right? It's
not
permanent
No,
record.
I do not. So, I used to have a bad speeding record, but not anymore.
You didn't have to give that up.
The county commissioners are gonna have a public hearing on August the 20th on their ordinance as well, so that'll give us a second opportunity to see what they're doing and what their issues are. And I would just suggest that we take a look at that and see if we can benefit from that and learn something from it, and then come to you with some recommendations, and you can have a public hearing, and maybe we can come up with something realistic that everybody can live with.
And get some more readings.
And get some more readings, because we just have not gotten the readings that, so far, that would cause you to say, wow, that's too much.
Over the top, yeah.
Well-
Tonight might be a good idea. We'll get some tomorrow night.
Well, can you bring your boom box at one of the meetings, and we have a meter in here, and we'll see what we can tolerate? Huh?
That's
I mean, to throw a number out there, how do I know? How do I know, in all honesty, Al of all people would know, much more so than I. He hears it. But I don't know what that level is. So for me to sit up here and say, well, you know, if the county's done this and Nags Head's done this and 70's acceptable, I don't even know what 70 is. I mean, is that
Is
an
your
unreal?
shower and your dishwasher running?
Is that an unrealistic
This chart's-
way to take a look at this? I mean, I gotta have,
Yeah, I think I'd be interested in that as well, because, and there's one meter, right? Is there just one?
Yes, ma'am, that's all we have is
Yeah.
one. The one we had broke, that was for the whole town planning department, had it, code enforcement used it, but it broke. So we ordered a new one, and, you know, $300 later, they're not cheap, and that was on the low end, so. The $1,500 to $2,000 for the north meter.
It seems like I remember a meeting before I was sitting up here. I think I remember being in the audience. I think you might have been with me, and I think they had the meter going, and they would say, I think you were like a 60, and
Right.
and I can't remember. I think Jeff was less, but it was. I remember them saying, and I remember thinking, wow, I can't believe conversation is that high, and just and then thinking what something else would be, but.
Well, and you got to remember too, when we're talking about it being a violation, we're talking about the noise emanates from one place and it's 60 decibels at the place where it's received. So it's
Right.
much louder probably when it
Right,
starts out.
And it's got to be constant for somebody to complain about it too. It's not just somebody talking. It's
Well, let me throw this out, because I also don't want, I'm totally fine and think it's worthy, you know, we're not going to move forward before the 20th anyway, to learn what happens on the 20th, get additional readings over the next couple of weeks. Is it possible, then maybe even set up a demo or something? I hate to wait till the next meeting
Right.
before we do something like that, because what I would like is to take the information over the next few weeks, and by the time we come back together at our first meeting in September, actually have a draft, because even at that point, if we're gonna move forward, we're still at least the next meeting out, if not, to schedule the public hearing before we could ever make something official. So just to kind of be mindful of the timeline and whatnot. Would that,
Well, we could certainly get with the chief and see what we could create some readings with and set up a time when you could come by and you could experience it and just see what we're talking about.
or go by tomorrow night and listen, and then they'll tell you later what the reading
Yeah.
was. We could do that.
You know, kind of puts me in a bad position now, because Al came to see me earlier, and I told him that I would go and talk to, you know, the owner of the restaurant and ask him to be more, yes, conscientious of his neighbors, and therefore, if I do that tomorrow, then.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you might not get a true reading tomorrow.
that's right.
yeah. Well, you didn't tell him when you'd go talk to him.
No, it did, but,
Usually they're pretty good for a day or two, you know, when you get that.
we'll definitely get a reading tomorrow night.
And then in looking at, I mean, obviously, we're just looking for at the next meeting a recommendation
Yeah.
based on the data that you obtain between now and then, and also looking at what the county does. Off the top of my head, though, without hearing it, and I appreciate the fact that that would be a wise thing to do, looking at some of the other counties and towns that we have information on with those decibel ratings and where they range, looking at, say, example, New Hanover up to 70, and then flipping over to the noise level chart. You know, a garbage disposal, that's in at 80, and it's not, in looking at these and thinking of the noises, it doesn't just move up one point as the next like highest. It's got to be some type of exponential when you're dealing with decibels. Each thing is 10 times.
60 to 70 is 10 times.
Yeah.
Or so from the squeeze toy at 90 to the inside subway car is 5. But it's a hard thing to get your arms around what is 10 times the level of the sound unless you
Right.
have like
Unless you
something
have-
there to,
Yeah.
that's a common noise to associate it with. But I think in addition to what the noise level is at it's something that's really offensive, I think it would also be interesting to know that there's a band inside of an establishment and to be outside at that property line, and what is that? On a night where we're not having complaints, it doesn't seem offensive, because I think that would serve as a good guide as well, so between those two. So we really don't need to do anything as far as taking action or giving direction, other than just the,
Well, you-
encouragement to come back.
Well, you've given us some direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
We don't
helps.
need any action.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion from anyone on this? No, I'm sorry, we're not, we weren't in a position to have a decision tonight anyway, but,
It's something that's gonna take, like Mike said, it's give and take, but I mean, sometimes there's a lot more taking than giving.
Right.
especially when you're right beside it, I would imagine, so.
No, I'm a couple blocks away.
Chris is near there too. Okay, all right, well, thank you all for the discussion, and thank you, Chief, for the information you and your guys are gonna obtain for us. That will be very helpful. Okay, so now we'll move on to the Commissioner's agenda. Mayor Pro-Tem?
Yeah, I have one thing. We have been talking about getting together a committee for beautification, or an appearance committee. We're given in our packet, Mary was kind enough to get it, I think Mary did, kind enough to get us this information about the Community Appearance Commission that was actually put into effect back in the mid-'70s. And I haven't been able to find out whether anything really came of it, much. But it's something that I'm looking for a consensus on us getting it started back up again. And our options would be to assign the duty to an existing commission to deal with this, or to create a new commission, which would be my preference. So we have in front of us the information about the Community Appearance Commission as it was originally structured. So I think what I might want to ask the board to do, if they so desire, is to look this over and see if we're satisfied with the way this is written, and just get it fired up, or whether we should go through it and maybe make a few changes to maybe bring it up to date, up with the times. But it's something that I think we need to get moving on, and I'd just like to find out the consensus of the board on following up on this.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I've looked it over. I'm not opposed to that. I'm okay with establishing an appearance commission, and I read over the membership requirements and numbers of members and powers and duties, and ultimately it would be a recommendation coming back to the board for board approval, so I'm not opposed to it.
I'm very much so in favor of it.
And I am as well. So as far as direction from here, or next steps?
Well, I guess if we want to, I don't know if we want to do anything tonight or not, that we could come back at our next meeting and with some ideas about how to structure it, and you can look it over, and if there's some stuff you might want to be changing in there, we can come to some consensus on how we want it to look.
I saw your highlights, and I had commented, are we prepared to move forward? Other than, obviously, there's some updates with years and dates and such, but could we actually move forward with this tonight as far as just getting staff to provide those changes? And
Certainly, and perhaps you're looking at forming a new committee. So maybe doing some advertising that would specifically request applicants to submit an application for the appearance committee. So we could do that to begin advertising and possibly
that's a great idea.
have that for you at the next meeting.
Right.
But I do agree that the ordinance does need to be brought up a little bit more to date.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess it's just a matter of if staff's comfortable working on that and bringing it up to date versus holding it till the next meeting. And if we could go ahead and start the process with the advertising, because it seems like there's definite consensus, actually unanimous, that everyone's interested in establishing this as you recommended, Mike, as a new committee or a new,
Yes.
Okay.
So when you advertise that, there's the part of this original that says, where possible, appointments shall be made in such a manner as to maintain the commission at all times, to maintain in the commission at all times a majority of members who have had special training or experience in a design field such as architecture, landscape design, horticultural, city planning, or closely related field. So is that something we might want to put in the advertisement?
We would. We would pull some of that language, and what we would do is do a draft ad and circulate that to the board, and if you had any thoughts of something that you'd like in addition or
You can just
something
circulate that by
different.
email later.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. And then, of course, we'd want some ordinary people on it, too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we need, I guess we need probably a motion to form a new committee, or what do you think, Debbie? What's the?
You could do it that way, or actually when it comes back to you and you have your applicants.
Okay, do it all at the
Okay,
same
we'll
Yes,
do
time.
ma'am. We have direction to move forward with drafting an ad for applicants and to clean up the current ordinance that we'd also would send to you for review. And then you would need to adopt that
Right.
at the next meeting anyway. Okay?
Great. Thank you, Mike, that's great.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else?
No, I don't have anything.
Bob?
Yes, ma'am, Mayor, just real briefly, we have a Vistas Bureau meeting Thursday, scheduled Thursday, and we will get the final draft of the Windmill Point site from the consultant. And it's about a 200-page document that I've had to look over the last several weeks, and looking forward to seeing what the Vistas Bureau is what direction they'll take with that. It's a number of different options that the board's being presented. But one of the key things, the last several months, the occupancy and the restaurant receipts have been up, which is good. As a matter of fact, they've been up every month. One thing that does concern the Vistas Bureau is we're getting folks down here. It's been a busy season. The hotelers have said they've experienced some record numbers. What concerns us is the retail. The retail numbers are down. Folks are coming, they're staying, they're buying groceries, they're eating in the restaurants, but the retail numbers are down. So I'm anxious to see what the June numbers look like Thursday. We're hoping that some of that's turning around, but those numbers have been down for several months. So that does concern us that folks are coming, but they're not. And we've had a lot of rain this summer, so you'd think they'd be in the stores buying, but that is a concern. So.
Thank you. I noticed when I drove by the other day, there actually is a sign now on the site. It's like a blue wooden sign down there by the Windmill Point area that says something about events area or something?
What the board has agreed to do is some low spots in there, and we're having some events. I think I might have mentioned a month or so ago, that there's going to be some fill put in that area, some portable facilities for restrooms, and we've had, there were like 3 nights that they did Friday nights at the movies for the kids. The seafood festival, which I'm sure you folks have been seeing some advertisement about that, October 20, I believe. That's going to be there. We've had some requests for something like a farmer's market on the weekends. So there are a number of functions that they're trying to promote that site. But come Thursday with the consultants report, there are 3 major major options that the Vistas Bureau and the county and the town of Nags Head will have to address to see what direction they want to go. As most of you know, trying to do something convention-wise is long-term. Trying to tap into the Wilmington and Raleigh and Myrtle Beach to try to get some of that convention business in the off-season. But in order to do that, you got to have a hotel and you got to have a pretty large facility adjacent to that. So that's some large commitment. So it'll be interesting to see what direction the board takes, if any, on Thursday. Right now, we'll get the final report from the consultant and go from there. But buy local. It's important, and we need to support our businesses and retail, and it's good to see that the occupancy in restaurants and those receipts are up, but we're certainly concerned about the retail numbers.
Great. Thank you. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Brandi?
I just want to say congratulations again to Kevin Davey and John Towler and Chief Britt. I mean, Mark Evans, y'all are all, I mean, we do, again, I know I say this a lot, but I just don't think y'all get the recognition you deserve. We have a wonderful police department, and not only are you putting your lives on the line, but sometimes people just don't think about all the things you have to do. And talking with Mark before this meeting started, I mean, you don't think about having to make that notification to friends and family about the folks who pass away, the deaths that have happened. I mean, that falls on these these officers too. So that's hard. I can't imagine having to do that. And they do this, and and they take it personally, and it's something that they do, and they do it well. So I think, again, that's just something that we should just be really, really proud of, and I'm, again, proud to be a part of Kill Devil Hills, and I just want to commend you all, because I think we've got the best police force here, so I can't say enough.
Okay. Under the mayor's agenda, a couple items this evening. In your packet, you received just a quick little memo regarding the shore protection project. There's a letter in there from Ken Wilson with Coastal Planning and Engineering, just really providing kind of an update of where we are. Ken will be here later this week, and we'll be meeting with Brandi, Commissioner Rheubottom, and Greg to also provide some of the data that's been received. And then from that, we'll also get a draft report, so maybe as soon as our next meeting, but if not, sometime in a meeting forthcoming, to provide a more detailed report. But they have been out there collecting data, working hard, and as soon as they get all that compiled, we'll bring it here to present and discuss. So more than likely, Ken will probably be here to present that as well. So just want to let you know the work is happening with that. when I started the meeting and we moved into the moment of silence, I did mention the safety concerns, and anytime there's a fatality, whether it's on the beach road or on the bypass, and whether it's walking or pedestrian, bicycling, obviously it brings back to life and to concern the safety concerns, and the fact that we really do not, up and down the Outer Banks, have really the multimodal paths that facilitate safe pedestrian access up and down our beaches. And I think we all know that's a concern. It gets heightened when you have these horrific accidents. Every month, the mayors get together and have a lunch meeting. The chairman of the Dare County Commissioners, Warren Judge, joins the mayors as well, and they are meeting tomorrow. And when Warren and I exchanged emails earlier today, one of the big topics that they'll be discussing is the safety along the bypass. My heart goes out to those that have suffered losses in this case, but it's not a simple matter of, okay, let's just jump right in and make a change and all this will go away. There's also other factors that contributed in these instances that regulations aren't going to fix that, especially, when you're talking about alcohol or substance use issues. But I do think it is on the forefront, and not just because of the accidents, but that's what brings it back up. But I just want to let you know that I know that those discussions are going to continue to occur. There also is a NCDOT webinar tomorrow that's on bicycle and pedestrian pathways, and Greg is going to participate in that webinar. It's an hour-and-a-half webinar tomorrow, and so there's a commitment certainly from the town to continue to look at what we can do on our part. We've talked about our we adopted the pedestrian plan not too long ago. So I can safely speak for this board that it's important to all of us, and we will continue to work with the other stakeholders on what can be done and what options there are. Obviously, resources is a big issue when it comes to that, and then working with NCDOT as our major partner in anything that could be done. So just wanted to mention that. And then also, again, thank our officers and Kim Murray for what she has done to continue to honor her late husband and the work of officers, whether it's in Nags Head or Killable Hills or Duck or Southern Shores. And I do think it's important to think about not just the service they do, but the sacrifices that their families make, and how scary that is to think that, they are going out to work for us and keep us safe, and sometimes they don't get that same luxury. So thank you all for what you do, and I especially thank Kim for her celebration of the officers and recognition. So, and one final thing, and maybe we could put this on the agenda somewhere for our next meeting. I appreciate what you did in bringing the appearance committee and getting that pushed forward. One of the other things that was discussed, I know during campaigning, and even more recent from that, was we do have those 44 acres of undeveloped land. Certainly some of it cannot. It's the tract of land back by the schools. Okay. And we had talked about possibly putting together more of an ad hoc committee. In your packet, you had presented information about the height committee and how that was just a standing committee, kind of a short term for that specific focus. And if it would be possible, I'd like to see if something could be put together based on that for this development vision of what we would want to do with that track. So we can talk more in detail afterwards, but if we could I would like to throw that out there, because both of those were something that we had discussed early on as being important as part of our vision and moving forward. So that being said, that's all I have under my agenda this evening. Town manager's agenda?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Town attorney's agenda?
I don't have anything for you this evening.
Okay. Consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. 2 items on the consent agenda. The first is the minutes from the July 9th, 2012 meeting. And the second is a budget amendment, which is to record the encumbrances outstanding at June 30th, 2012, and would recommend this evening the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the second time set aside this evening for public comment. Yes, Mr. Kimball.
I'll follow him up and make it more efficient.
Okay.
Y'all got the old men out of their chairs tonight.
Uh-oh.
My name's Howard Kimball. I live at 803 West Sportsman Drive. I am not speaking tonight as a private citizen. I'm speaking as a member of your planning board. And I'm speaking particularly about the metro rental issue that y'all dealt with tonight. The planning board spent, I guess, over an hour dealing with the pros and cons of this thing. And the whole meat of their request is to get rid of some parking spaces so they can build a larger building, okay? But that wasn't the planning board's concern. Our concern was with dealing with rental businesses. And our concern was, well, what's going to prevent a restaurant from putting out a couple of surfboards for rent, and then they become a rental business? And that excludes all of their area that is not open to the public, like behind the bar, the kitchen, the freezers, the storerooms. So those areas then would be rated at, instead of one parking spot for every 200 square feet, one for every 400. So in essence, they could reduce their parking. And not just them, but businesses like Wings and Sensations. And I mean, it can go on and on and on. So I think when you look at this thing, and I guess y'all don't have the minutes yet from our meeting, but you would have seen that we spent a lot of time discussing this. And the owner that was here, incidentally, that's a non-conforming site out there, whether y'all know that or not. He's got those storage bins out there, taking up parking spots. Now, whether his business is overparked or not, that's not the issue. And he said to us, he said, if you'll approve this so we can build a bigger building, I'll move those storage bins. Well, they shouldn't be there to begin with, okay? And what assurance do we have if y'all do approve that for him? So, but I just wanted y'all to know that the planning board didn't just randomly give this a 2-minute look and say, well, nope. And another thing, we don't think warehousing should be in our commercial zone. That's why it was put in the light industrial zone to begin with, okay? And another thing, if we do that and allow them to reduce the parking, then who is going to go out and measure all of these spaces that are not open to the public? Somebody has to do that, and it's going to have to be staff that's going to do that. And if we allow them to do this, 5 years from now, they sell that building and somebody else wants to have a change of use, then we have a parking problem. Because we allowed it to go one space for every 400, and what the new owner wants to do requires one space for every 200. So we can't invent parking spaces. So I know Greg and them really y'all gave them a terrible task to try to write this thing, because honestly, I don't know how to write it. And I don't know how they're going to write it, but you can bet that there's a lot of engineers out there waiting for our decision on this.
and they'll be back in here with the restaurants and stores like Wings and, well, any of our businesses. So we have to really be careful what we do with this. And I just wanted to let y'all know that your planning board really did a thorough job on this before we recommended denial. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Howard.
And my name is Jerry Freilich. I live at 414 Wallace in Kill Level Hills. I've got two things I wanted to talk about for a minute. I'll try to keep it to 3 minutes. On a Saturday morning about 3 weeks ago, my wife came downstairs, and before she even said, "Hello, darling, good morning," she told me that, "Did you hear that noise across the street last night when they were playing cornhole, drinking, shouting, and screaming until 1:30 in the morning?" And I said no, and if I would have, and if you would have called me, I would have called the police. I went over and talked to the man, and the next couple of days was okay. It's a party house on weekends. My point about it is that I think you're barking up the wrong tree, at least so much, putting so much emphasis on, on decibels. I think you need to be thinking about time. 1:30 in the morning, the next night, he was pretty good about it. He played a game a little bit, did some more drinking, and they quit about 10:30. The point is about decibels, and I'm not sure if your meter chief registers on spurts. If it goes up to a place where the highest level that it attained, or does it just keep moving back and forth? All right, so you know there can be a spurt. At 11 o'clock at night, somebody can be sitting on their front porch across the street, having a good time, and at some level, which would be maybe 30 or 40 decibels, and all of a sudden somebody starts guffawing and laughing, and it goes over it. I think you ought to ponder the time limit. The second thing I wanted to talk about is the appearance committee. A couple of years ago, and Mary will remember this, we had a trash attack for about 3 or 4 or 5 years, and that made a big difference in the way the appearance of the town looked. And the other biggest thing I think that made a difference in the town was when they went to 2 times a year with the trash collection. Because if you recall, before that, it was anything out on the curb was okay. You still see a lot of that, and I don't know what you can do with your town advertisements to get people to not put it out there except when they're supposed to. But I'm all in favor of the committee, and I think that we can go back to the trash attack very, very easily, and that would make a big difference for all the bottles and things. I think it's a North Carolina sport to see how many beer bottles you can throw out the window as you drive from point A to point B. Ponder decibels. Oh, I'll tell you what I was going to say too. You want to try a decibel experiment, just turn on your TV and then just look, is that little, and push the increase button, and as that little button moves across the point there, that's just about 10 spaces. And you go from no space to the full volume, you're hearing about what 10 decibels are going to be. So it's a lot more than you think it is. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak? Yes, Mr. Almany.
James Almany, 113 Porthole Court. I have a couple questions about the Sea Ranch project. I didn't hear too much about that they could not do that on their own, that they have to actually connect it to the access, or I'm assuming it's just less expensive for them to do it that way. And I'm wondering, or curious about the liability idea. Are they allowed to sell alcohol through that window? And how does that react to the liability of the town helping to facilitate that? Could that end up being a problem if, there's some kind of injury and the town's involved in helping them get to the window if they are indeed allowed to sell alcohol through that? Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak at public comment? Okay, thank you. We'll move to response to public comment. First, in response to Mr. Kimball. I will respond. First, certainly, there's no doubt that planning did a thorough job, and while I haven't, the minutes aren't out. I spoke with a couple of people that were at the meeting, and no doubt that you guys put the time into it. Personally, right now, I don't see this as your typical definition of warehousing. I also think that while we may have given the staff a monumental task to do, I think that's our responsibility to do that, to leave no stone unturned as far as we trying to search for a solution. I don't think the way that we can move forward is basing it on space that's open to the public, because I think, as you indicated, that would leave a lot of room for other businesses to approach us, and then we've opened Pandora's box. So I would never profess to be any type of expert in this, but I'm hoping that staff can look at possible solutions that don't tie it into what part of your space is open retail space and what part is storage. But that will be their monumental task to come forth. But I certainly didn't want to give the impression that I didn't think you all did give it serious consideration, and I knew you had a lot of discussion and dialogue back and forth. So. Anyone else have any?
I too, again, I think I probably expressed, I've got reservations about that as well, and I think if we do this, and I don't know that it's a done deal, I think we just expressed that we wanted staff to, try their best to put this into language. But again, to try to tie up every loophole, and if there's a way to do that, to say that it is for rental-only companies to exclude somebody, like a restaurant. Again, we may have to be very specific in our verbiage with that, so that it can't be, a restaurant or another company to where they can just go and do some kind of rental thing to exclude that. So it's a good thing that you brought that up. So, again, there's unseen things that we may have to look into, but thank you for bringing that up, because that's, again, something that we'll have to look at.
Okay. Next, response to Jerry Furlick's comments. Thank you for bringing forth the time consideration, kind of marrying time and decibels. I think we need to be specific in the language. I know Brandi mentioned that you're not just taking the peak reading. But we probably need to be mindful of how what language we use to describe that. And on your appearance committee, I do not recall the trash attack strategy, but I think that's obviously something great to put right on the one of the first meeting agendas, especially if there's history that it worked well. So.
I can talk to you about it. It was quite an event. It was really well attended, and everybody seemed to enjoy it. And we collected a lot of junk.
Oh, great.
I mean, we're talking several thousand pounds.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Does anyone else have any to add? And then to Mr. Almany's questions, comments about the Sea Ranch. Greg, could you speak to the fact about doing it on their own or not their own, or his first?
Yeah, I think Mr. Wood indicated that they had done some planning efforts to do it on their own, but they figured that it would be didn't make sense, I think were his words, to do it on their own when they could use our access. And yes, they could certainly do it on their own. There's no question about it. It could be done. And then the second part about alcohol, I guess if they had an off-premise licenses, I'm not an ALE expert, and these gentlemen in the police department might be able to help you, or maybe the town attorney, but I guess if they had an off-premise license, they could sell alcohol if they wanted to. But that wasn't one of the questions that was asked.
Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I doubt that they have an off-premise.
Yeah, I don't think there's no way they
license.
got an off-premise.
I'd be shocked if they were selling alcohol
Yeah.
out there. And as far as the liability issue, we don't have any liability for what they do, any more than somebody using one of our sidewalks or streets goes and buys alcohol and does something. We don't have any liability for that.
And I know they mentioned the one thing they mentioned about doing it on their own was building a walkover above the over the dune. And I don't know whether they just stopped because they thought about this public-private partnership, or whether they wouldn't even have been able to get there with CAMA and permitting and all that. I don't know. We didn't go into detail questioning that line of, so.
Speaking to Mr. Almany, when I had my discussion today with Greg regarding the Sea Ranch thing, I don't know which one of us brought it up. I think it was him. I'll give him the credit, you know, if it sounds good. If not, then it's... I think, as I recall, Greg, you can correct me, the scenario would be somebody has a property next to a beach access and there's a storm and their walkway gets washed out. And rather than building their walkway back again, they just come to us and say, well, can't I just hook up to yours? Now, if we do what was proposed tonight, are we opening the door for that? I think it's a good question. Thanks for bringing it up because it reminded me.
Okay. All right, does anyone have anything else tonight before we adjourn? Okay, if not, a motion's in order.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Good night. Thank you all for being with
Thanks,
us.
everybody.